Talking about quarterbacks, we're looking at the QB position right now for a Week 9 FanDuel first look. It's loaded right off the top of the card here. You have Josh Allen going up against Jacksonville. I made a comment earlier this morning about how it seems like the Rams and the Buffalo Bills just have the easiest schedules in the world. Tampa Bay too, but they lost yesterday, so that there's that. Um, Josh Allen taking on Jacksonville at 9K. Patrick Mahomes in this shootout game with Green Bay. I want to see where the total's at with that one. So if you could pull that up for me, I would assume it's like 55. That's kind of where I would put that one in. Lamar Jackson going up against Minnesota should be a fireworks show there. All Minnesota games go to that final drive in the fourth quarter, all of them. So this will be another one where that should happen. Kyler Murray expected to miss, but again, it's Kyler Murray, so a lot of things can happen here. But it's not looking good for him in that ankle injury that he sustained on Thursday night. Maybe he'll find a way to play, but 8,200 right now with the questionable tag doesn't seem ideal. Aaron Rodgers, 8,100 against Kansas City. Dak Prescott, I lean towards him not playing. We saw what Cooper Rush did last night, not saying that's happening every single game, but I would assume that with the Dallas schedule over the next 2 weeks, they have Denver and then they have Atlanta, both at home. So I think that if you wanted to give Prescott a little bit more time, this would be the 2 week period to do it before you get into some real playoff contention over the next month in November. So outside of those top guys, Josh, who do you think you're leaning on? And maybe is it enough to just go for Hurts, or are we staying away from that train completely now after he burned us both yesterday?
I don't think you can stay away from it. I feel like it's a little bit too much recency bias if you do stay away from it. It I'm laughing because we talked about it yesterday over text. I texted you and said, I don't know what you did to the quarterback position, but you need to apologize right now. And here, I'm gonna look up what the text was because I think it was hilarious to see that text. Hold on one second. Looking at my text from Jared. He said, I literally wish I could talk to the fantasy god in charge of QB and ask what I did wrong. And then he said you should play Mahomes this week. That way, so your Packers can win, which I found really funny. So yeah, I just like the QB position keeps scoring us, and it's crazy that you've had back to back, not back to back. You've had two QBs where their team has scored like 40 plus points, which is insane. That's a ton of offensive production, and the quarterback proceeds to get like fantasy points in the teens. Like that's insane when you think about an offense having that much production and just the quarterback completely flopping in fantasy.
Yeah, I have not. I don't have much to say about it, but I'm on a bad run with FanDuel quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
It's a really rough run. In week 1, I played Josh Allen against the Steelers. That was a season low 17 FanDuel points. In week 2, I played week 3, I played Lamar Jackson against. I might have played him in both. I'm not sure, but I played him against Detroit, where his team scored like 40 points and he only put up 20 FanDuel points. Uh, yeah, where like everybody got touchdowns except for him. I played him that week, and then I played Justin Herbert against Dallas, where he had 3 touchdowns taken away from him. I played Mahomes against Tennessee, and we all know how that ended up. And then yesterday I played Jalen Hurts, where you had both Jordan Howard and Boston Scott score 2 touchdowns, and that's just I said this a bunch of times on in Discord and on shows and stuff. Like you will never see, as long as Jalen Hurts is the starting QB for the Eagles, you will never see a situation ever again where the team puts up 40 points and he scores less than 15 FanDuel points ever.
Yeah, ever. And you just don't see that very often for QBs in general. So absolutely insane. I mean, who would have thought that Boston Scott and Jordan Howard would both have 2 touchdowns each? That's a really interesting case when you think about it. Yeah, when it comes to quarterbacks this week, though, just to get us back on track, I think it's really hard not to play Josh Allen. I know this price tag's kind of egregious at 9K, but we're seeing the type of production he has. We're seeing that he kind of became that running back one again against Miami. Who knows if he holds that role, but he's had a good amount of rushing attempts, especially over the past 3 weeks. Kansas City, he had 11. Tennessee, he had 9. Miami, he had 8. He's just doing everything for this team. And as we saw yesterday, Jacksonville can make any quarterback look amazing. Like they
Yep.
made Geno Smith look like
Yep.
a freaking QB1 out there. So what are they going to do against an actual QB1? I'm not sure. I'm sure Josh Allen is going to absolutely dominate this week. And it's just the fact of like I think the team scores 40 points, will it be a Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson-esque performance where the team scores 40 points and you don't see Josh Allen get over 15? I highly doubt it, but I don't know. With our luck at QB, maybe that will be the case.
Yeah, fun fact, I also played, by the way, this if you look at the box score for the Buffalo Bills, I said this already once, but they haven't played anybody this year. The only team that they played was the Chiefs. That was it. Anyway, they get the Jacksonville Jaguars now. I played Josh Allen in week 1 and also week whenever that was against Houston. So 2 of his lowest FanDuel performances out of the season, and he's back in play again. I'm not going to use recency bias to get me off of him. I also think that Lamar Jackson's interesting in a game where I think that it stays a little bit closer than people expect. Like I said, most Minnesota games get within 1 score. I think Jackson's just fine. We'll also see what happens with their running backs, as I think that they're going to deal a couple of them this week. So we'll see what happens with those guys. Aaron Rodgers, outside of a tournament play for me. Him and Mahomes both. I think that they're. I'm not going to call either of them cash plays. I think that they fall in the range of being in consideration, but I'm going to focus on tournaments for that game. Did you find out what the total was for that?
Or what game were you talking? I knew you were talking about a game. I was half listening though, so I didn't see. I didn't hear what game you talked about, but I have the odds page in front of me. So what game was it?
The game we're going to.
Oh, 55.5. So
Okay,
I'm pretty sure
cool.
you said it was 55, so you were dead on.
Yep, sounds about right. I think that game's going to get a lot of steam, especially if both QBs are healthy, which it looks like. Patrick Mahomes is not going to get mispriced here, even though he plays tonight. So I think that the Chiefs' offense gets back on track at home tonight against the Giants, and they should be able to keep. I think it's a fireworks show on Sunday, honestly. So we'll see how it goes there. But those guys are going to be involved in the highest owned tournament stack game on the slate by far.
Interesting to see that Vegas or BetOnline has this at -3 for the Chiefs. I don't know if you knew this, but like it's going to be extreme. I bet you get a lot of bets on the Packers come today and probably tomorrow as well, and throughout the week. I bet a lot of people bet that +3.
It's a really safe line, I will say. I think that they have to give them 3 points at home. And I'm very excited. I know we're kind of like wasting time here, but the last thing I'll say on this game right now is that I know what to expect when I go into a Chiefs game at Arrowhead, but I've heard that the sound is actually absolutely monstrous at the beginning. Like they do that specific chant at the beginning of the game, and apparently it's one of the loudest decibel stadiums in the country. So I'm very excited to see what that goes like, and I will definitely be sporting my Packers jersey as long as I know that you are too.
Yeah, I bought my Packers jersey on Saturday, so I'm gonna I'm gonna have some Packers gear on. My girlfriend's gonna have some Packers gear on. I'm actually rooting for Rodgers because my high stakes dynasty league has Rodgers in it. So like, I have a rooting interest in the game, and I'm pumped up. I'm excited, man. I don't know if you knew this. This is the first time that I've been to a football game since the Seahawks played the Panthers in 2012, I think it was. Like, it's been a long time since I've been to an NFL
Wow.
game.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I went to one in August, so I can't say the same.
Lucky you, man.
Yeah.
I haven't been I've never now I'm in a town where there's an NFL team, and I'm going to a Titans game in December. Going to see them play the 49ers, but like I've always been like a 2 or 3 hour drive from the Panthers, and
Sure.
I've never had a rooting interest in the Panthers. So like I never had a reason to go, but now we have this, but I also have the Titans right next to me. So I don't know. We're wasting time. We need to get on because we only have a limited amount of time today.
Yes, we do. All right, let's talk about guys under 8K. Like I said, Dak Prescott, I would assume he's probably not going to play. Also, not really an ideal environment against Denver anyway. Maybe we see that defense take a step back as they decide that they are going to start tanking by trading away Von Miller, who honestly, at this point probably wasn't their best defender. I think that Bradley Chubb is probably a better defender than he is right now on this team. But regardless, I think that we can still stick to some Dallas plays as the slate moves on, but I would not expect Prescott to play on Sunday. Like I said, Jalen Hurts, I feel like it's kind of a hard spot to ignore. Every single Chargers game seems to be consistently getting closer and closer as this is going on. As we saw yesterday, the New England Patriots came in and beat them there. should be a fun, interesting battle between two teams that have really young quarterbacks. Burrow against Cleveland. This is going to be a gross one. I think people actually went heavy on Joe Burrow yesterday, and for what it's worth, he looked all right most of the game, but he still made some mistakes late, including two turnovers. And the ceiling, while it's respectable in some regard, at 27 against Baltimore, the team scored 30 plus points and the dude only put up 21 FanDuel points. So like for me it's just not cash game viable, and for tournaments you really have to capitalize on the ceiling of whoever his maybe even top two of his receivers are in this spot. And this is a good spot, but again, it's a matchup against an AFC North opponent that I don't really want to touch. So anybody in this range below 8K for you?
Yeah, I'm below 8K. Sorry, I was looking at some what wide receivers were super successful yesterday for Burrow, because I was just seeing if you paired him up with his best wide receivers
Yeah.
yesterday, what would your score be looking like? And I know Tyler Boyd had a big day. I don't know if T Higgins or Jamar Chase had the bigger day when it comes to them two, but
Yeah.
that stack is interesting to me just because I know how bad this Cleveland secondary is, and we saw it at times yesterday. I know that the Steelers weren't able to put up a monumental amount of points necessarily, but we did see plenty of spots where the secondary continues to be a secondary that leaves guys just wide open for some reason. Like I really can't fathom how bad this secondary is, and I think you haven't seen the beginning of how bad this secondary is, and this is a chance for Joe Burrow to really expose them. I'm still more interested in the receivers than I am in the QB, just
Yep.
because, like you said, what's the ceiling here for Joe Burrow? If he's not going to run the ball like some of these other guys will, then like how much can you really trust in Joe Burrow to get you? I would say to take down a tournament, you probably need 30 FanDuel points from Joe Burrow at 7,600. I think guys around this range could give you 30 FanDuel points. So like I just don't know how you get, like, he had the perfect game against Baltimore and he still wasn't able to get there to 30 FanDuel
Right.
points. I mean, he was
That's my thing.
close, but
Yeah.
he wasn't able to get there. So like I just don't know how you play Joe Burrow. I do like his wide receivers a lot though. We'll talk about that soon. In this range, I kind of like Tua. I feel like there's a little bit of a narrative here. He's going
Sure.
against this Houston team that keeps telling him that there keeps being rumors about him being traded there. Keeps being rumors about the trade for Deshaun Watson. They lost last week. We know he does have that ceiling. Like we saw that against the Jags where he had 28 FanDuel points, or not against the Jags, sorry, against Atlanta where he had those 28 FanDuel points. We know he can run the ball in as well. So like he has the running upside. He has plenty of weapons to get to. This is going to be one of the better matchups. I feel like Houston could actually keep this close too. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel like it's going to be a monstrous blowout by Miami. So like I really like this Tua play at 7,300. I feel like this could be the guy for me if I'm paying down in this range.
Yep, and we've seen it now over the times that he's actually started and been in. While the rushing upside isn't necessarily there, he can at times put the ball on the ground when need be and score rushing touchdowns because they just don't have that running back right now. Gaskin would be that guy, but he's just not big enough to make those kinds of plays with Malcolm Brown on the shelf. So I don't mind Tua. I think that people will go here. It's just this. I mean, if you're comparing it's very clear. His box score kind of lays out everything that you need to know. Against good defenses like Buffalo and New England, he struggled, and against teams like Jacksonville and Atlanta, who are Texans level, if not even better than them, he did very well. So I think that Tua's fine. Maybe we talk about this tomorrow more on the DraftKings First Look, where I probably have a little bit more interest in him as probably a guy you can target under 6K and feel pretty good about it. On FanDuel, it's always tough because you're only saving like $1,000 gets you Lamar Jackson. So like that's kind of where I would lean always. But yeah, he's definitely in a good spot. I can't say that he's not a bad play because he is a good one. Let's go ahead. Let's move down the list a little bit. I think Derek Carr makes some sense actually at 7,500 if you want to go there against the New York Giants. I expect that defense to be just as bad as they always are. Uh, and okay, so I mean, you have Jimmy G and Trey Lance at the same price. I would expect Jimmy would start, but you're not playing him against Arizona's defense unless you feel differently.
No, I don't feel differently. And this is not the space to go to Jimmy G. think he'll probably get sacked a lot in this game, actually. I think a lot of pressure will be on Jimmy G. And I don't know. I think he stayed in his job just by scoring those 2 touchdowns all by himself yesterday. And he didn't have a turnover as well, which is kind of the main thing with him. So, like, if he doesn't have a turnover, he's at least keeping his job for now. But this is going to be an extremely important game. And I think at any moment you could see him benched for Trey Lance. So I would just stay away from Jimmy, and I would stay away from Trey too.
Yeah, so here's the ultimate juice spot on both sites this week. And I will talk about DraftKings tomorrow because I have not pulled up the price tags. But Josh, we got some quarterbacks in play down here. It's gross. I'm never going to do it for cash games. But in tournaments, man, like we see now Trevor Simeon has a matchup against the Atlanta Falcons in New Orleans. He's 7K. Jameis Winston's out for the year, confirmed torn ACL. Taysom Hill, not sure if he's on track or not to play with a concussion. So that is one of the biggest pieces of news on the week. We also have a situation where on the other side of the Houston game, who's going to start between Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor? Another really good matchup on paper. And then finally, can we do anything with Cooper Rush if he starts at 6,500 against Denver?
No, like I don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, like even PJ Walker, guy you didn't bring up, but
Yep.
he's in play if Sam Darnold's going to be out. Well, not in
Sure.
play, but he could end up playing the game
Yep.
because Sam Darnold dealing with that concussion. We've seen PJ Walker come in twice in the past 2 weeks, so like PJ Walker's a guy that could end up seeing the field. Cooper Rush could be a guy that ends up seeing the field. Like you said, Trevor Simeon could be a guy that ends up seeing the field. It's going to be really interesting this week with all the backup QBs that could potentially be playing this weekend.
Yep, it certainly will. Also, I mean, we thought that we saw a ceiling game out of Cooper Rush last night with the yardage over 300 and over 40 pass attempts. Still only got you 18 FanDuel points at that. So
Yeah.
no matter how low the price tag is, I don't think the ceiling is more than 22 points, which is not going to get you anything there.
And
So
again, just like to your point, like you pay an extra $700, no, $800, and you get the Tua. Like I'd much rather have Tua over Cooper Rush this week.
Yep, agreed. This is an interesting topic of conversation tomorrow on the DraftKings First Look because I do think on DraftKings, as pricing gets tighter, that you're going to be able to get to tournament plays that make some sense when it comes to these cheapo quarterbacks. But on FanDuel, these guys up top, they're all stacked. They're all playing this weekend. The only one that's missing is Stafford. So, like, I don't know. These guys are all stacked up here, and I don't see myself paying down any farther than 8,000, honestly. So let's go ahead. Let's move on to running backs. And we have Christian McCaffrey still on the IR up top at 10K. No Derrick Henry on the slate. That's a Sunday night game, so we have a week to adjust that news and who's going to take over for them. We also, can't really make any definitives because we have no idea what some of these contenders are going to do at the trade deadline tomorrow. So we'll do our best right now to walk through it. But you had Alvin Kamara have a decent game against Tampa Bay. He did better than I thought he was going to do. Scored 15 FanDuel points there. It seemed like he was getting the ball a lot more than just 22 times. So he's going to be quite popular against a Falcons team now that they do not have Jameis Winston, and there's a possibility that Taysom Hill misses. You also have Austin Eckler, who continues to be a fantasy beast against the Philadelphia Eagles, who give up a ton of points to the opposing running back. Dalvin Cook in a great spot if he gets the touches. That's the main thing for me there. And then Aaron Jones in that really competitive game against Kansas City. So honestly, I haven't even said the best matchup yet, so I'll let you take that one because I'm sure you can see it a little bit farther down the screen.
I don't know which one you're talking about off the top of my head as I'm looking down here.
I think
I'm
you
curious.
probably went too far. It's I think that it's Nick Chubb week this week.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm willing to. I don't know. I don't think that Cincy team is that bad on defense, but I think it is interesting. And do we know Kareem Hunt's going to be out this week?
We don't 100%. So
Okay,
take that with a grain of salt. He's obviously never going to get the pass game work. I expected him to struggle against Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I don't mind Nick Chubb at 7,600. We were paying like 9K for this guy at points, if not a little bit higher. So I think that Chubb on FanDuel makes a lot of sense in a game where I expect people to be very heavy on the Cincy side in the passing game.
For sure. I think there's a lot of guys that are in play in this range. I like the Eckler play at 9K. I think Aaron Jones is definitely playable in that game.
Yep.
I do worry about the touches, but like I don't know. He still got
Well,
15 and he still sees so much passing work that I
yeah.
think he should be just fine at the price tag. I like the Nick Chubb play. This is an interesting running back week. I really don't see a lot of things like popping off the page for me that I absolutely love. As I go up and down this list and
Yeah.
just going deeper into this list, it gets even uglier as you keep scrolling.
Let's scroll down. So Paco says that I think he's talking about Kareem Hunt being on IR, so he should be out this week too. This will be the third week, I think. Saquon out against Vegas. That'll be interesting to see where Booker's priced at. Joe Mixon against Cleveland. Not the greatest spot on paper. I probably will stay away myself, but he's getting the touches, so we'll see how that goes. I was really interested to see where these guys would be priced down here because we have a lot of. I don't know if it's going to be a week where we have guys that are under 70 or 7,000. That makes sense. So, Josh Jacobs, questionable with a chest injury. A great matchup against the Giants. So, we'll see. Eli Mitchell, priced too high for my liking right now. He was a steal last week, and we capitalized on that for both sites. Cordero Patterson, if Calvin Ridley continues to be out, which he will miss, and I actually don't think that he's going to play the rest of the season, Josh. So, can we talk about Cordero Patterson? I know I would never play him in cash against New Orleans, but is he at least a guy that we have to think about for the rest of the year?
I think he is. I kind of was like, I was trying to get off that train yesterday, but he still had a good day yesterday just because he's so
Yep.
dynamic with his catches and with his running attempts. So like, I think he is going to be someone that we consider for the rest of the season, just not in this game against New Orleans. That's for sure.
Yeah, things drop off really hard after that 8K range, and now there's only like four guys in the 7K range in total. Chuba Hubbard against New England, bad matchup. I will stay away from that. Darrell Williams against Green Bay, that's all right. Again, do I want to pay 6,700 for him? Not really. Clyde Edwards-Helaire's back on the slate. I mean, I thought he was out for the year. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's, I don't know, interesting there. Damien Harris is probably one of the guys that pops out to me. Carolina's run defense is not number one. They just aren't. So we saw a few teams take advantage of that so far this season. Damien Harris continues to be a guy that gets the ball in his hands. You just wish that he would score more fantasy points. And I know I'm asking for a lot here, but he had 23 touches, rushing attempts yesterday, got in the end zone once, and now has 3 straight games of double-digit fantasy performances with a ceiling of around 25. So at 6,600, going up against Carolina, kind of feels like a spot where they'd run the ball. I guess they have a lot of guys that they can give the ball to, but I like Damien Harris at 6,600 in this price range for sure.
I don't know. Gilmore might make 13 tackles against this New England team, against this New England team because he'll be starting in this game. I thought that was a little bit of an interesting storyline coming into this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, Damien Harris looks just fine. I just I feel kind of like you where I feel like I'm asking for too much, but like Damien Harris should do more with 23 carries in my opinion. So like if he's getting those 23 carries and not only getting 80 yards, like that's under 4 yards per carry.
Yep.
So I don't know. I want to see more as well, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. So again, trade deadlines tomorrow. Maybe Melvin Gordon moves to a different team and Javonte Williams gets a Dallas matchup. But right now, we do know that Miles Sanders, I expect him to miss again. We know that this Chargers team tries to prevent big plays and just gives it up on the ground repeatedly. Boston Scott, 6,300, scored 2 touchdowns, not priced high enough. You also have him. You also have Booker down here. If Josh Jacobs misses, you have Kenyon Drake by himself against the New York Giants. And the guy that we all wanted to talk about, Myles Gaskin against Houston, 6,100, Josh.
Disgusting. I mean, like, it's definitely in play, but it's absolutely terrifying to think that I might be playing Myles Gaskin this week.
Certainly is. Also need to consider Zach Moss for tournaments. He's actually, I think that Zach Moss, it's now officially Zach Moss time. So we'll see how that goes. People will probably pivot to Jordan Howard at 5,700 too. The trade deadline is going to shake some things up, so we'll circle back around to this later in the week. But right now, this is a really gross range, but I feel like you kind of have to dumpster dive for one of these plays later on. So anything else for the running back position, and then we can fast forward to wide receiver.
Nope. Let's go to wide receiver. Talk about that position a little bit.
Perfect. This one is very top heavy, just like last week was. I do expect Devontae Adams to play and be featured in this spot against Kansas City. We've seen it's very clear that Green Bay, you can tell exactly when Green Bay is in close games by looking at Devontae Adams' box score. You saw the close game against San Francisco, scored 25 FanDuel points, got 18 targets. Close game against Cincinnati, 32 FanDuel points, got 16 targets. And then it kind of just is so-so from there. So I expect this game to be a shootout. Adams should have 10 plus targets, maybe even get in that 15 range. And I think that he does have the ability to pay off his salary at 9K. So for me, I feel like he's going to be a really popular option this week. But talk to me about some of these other guys in this range, because your boy Debo Samuel just continues to break slates.
Just continues, man. He's having like a historic season. He has more receiving yards than Jerry Rice did in his best season. Like, that's the type of season we're talking about for Debo Samuel. For some reason, we just keep on fading him, even though he keeps dominating teams.
Yep.
So this is an Arizona matchup where he did at least struggle a little bit, but we still saw him be fantasy relevant. He had 14.6 FanDuel points last time he faced off against Arizona. Now with Jimmy as the quarterback, I feel like Jimmy honestly kind of melds better with him than Trey Lance does. So I think Debo's in play here at 8K. I think Jamar Chase is in play here at 7,900. He didn't have the best week this past week, but he got targeted 9 times and only got 3 receptions. So I don't know if you saw, but he absolutely dropped a touchdown pass. Like,
Oh yeah,
came
I
square
know.
in the chest and just hit off the shoulder pad. So I don't
Yep.
know. Maybe we could take the tiniest victory lap ever, because I know neither one of us were necessarily Jamar Chase believers before the season started. I don't know. This top range is definitely enticing. Like you said, Devontae Adams could totally be in play here. Debo Samuel definitely in play. Jamar Chase 100% in play. And I don't know. What do you think about after that? Who are you going to next?
Yeah, so two quick things. First, John Adams is not on the IR. He's just on the reserve COVID list. So wasn't clear enough to make it in a 3 game or a 3 day resting period from Sunday to Thursday. So he'll be back for this one. I have no doubt about it. Alan Lazard, on the other hand, might not be back because he is not vaccinated. So we'll see how that goes. But I expect the Packers' weapons to be back. And with Rob Tonyan now down and out for the season with the ACL, even more targets should go Adams' way. Now, I brought this up on the screen for those of you that are watching, and I just was looking at who the Cardinals had as a backup quarterback, and looks like they have Colt McCoy and Chris Streveler, the XFL product. So Colt McCoy would make the start if Kyler Murray was in. That would lower the ceiling of this entire game. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But if he's in for whatever reason, I do think Debo Samuel is an awesome play at 8K. We didn't talk about Tyreek Hill too much. Packers have been, I won't say getting lit up. They got lit up by DeAndre Hopkins for one play, and then he got hurt. Stokes tends to give up the long ball once or twice a game. Tyreek Hill can get loose here. I do not expect Jair Alexander to be back for this one. Maybe he'll surprise me and play, but he'll be limited probably in that effort. So where does Tyreek Hill rank for you in these top like 4 guys?
Fourth, I think. I don't know. He's definitely the biggest question mark. I know he has a lot of GPP upside, but I feel like Debo, Jamar, and Adams kind of give you that similar GPP upside, and Debo and Jamar give it to you at a cheaper price tag too. So I
Right.
don't know. I'm Hill's last on my list in these top 4 guys.
Yeah, last week we saw a situation where you had Cooper Cup all by himself, and then you had guys like Debo and Jamar Chase below him at a substantial discount. And then that's kind of why the field started to gravitate towards Stephon Diggs, who, by all means, I thought he was a good play, but he did not live up to the expectation. If it wasn't for that touchdown in the second half, he'd be having a single-digit fantasy point game. So I don't know what's going on with the Buffalo Bills. They just have so many guys they can throw to. I don't know. I think that Diggs is fine against Jacksonville. I just feel like this week's going to be different in where you have Adams in a great game, Tyreek Hill in a great game, Debo Samuel and could be a shootout, Jamar Chase, another very good spot for him, Marquis Brown even in a great matchup one-on-one against these Minnesota defensive backs who are forced into man-to-man coverage without Patrick Peterson. It's going to be a field day, so I think that there are 5 receivers better than Diggs at this price range.
And this is the second time this has happened too. And maybe it's just this Miami team because you look at other games and he doesn't do nearly as bad. But last time he faced off against Miami, Same exact storyline. Gets absolutely saved by a receiving touchdown. If he doesn't have that receiving touchdown, then he has 7 targets for 3 receptions and 60 yards, or a little bit less than 60 yards, I guess. But yeah, just got saved by touchdowns in both weeks. I don't know. Like, the only week that we have seen where he really didn't get saved by a touchdown, it's honestly against Houston, like where he had 114 yards and had 14 FanDuel points. I
Sure.
feel like even in the Tennessee game a little bit, he got saved by his touchdown. So I don't know. I found it easy to go to this price tag at 7K when he was here last week, but 7,600 just seems out of my range, especially when you have these Minnesota wide receivers right below him, which we'll talk about probably right now.
Yep. Already kind of seems like a Stars Scrubs-ish approach with paying up a quarterback and one of these top wide receivers and then kind of dumpster diving at that running back position like we saw a few minutes ago. These Minnesota wide receivers are in good spots. It's just which one gets shadowed by Marlon Humphrey. So that's kind of what it comes down to there. It's not prime time, so Kirk should be able to throw to whoever he wants. Subtle shot at the Vikings last night. Anyway,
Yikes.
if Cooper Rush starts, I think that I'm going to stay away from Lamb and Cooper. Kind of surprising that they continue to price Lamb up as high as they do and give Cooper a slight discount, actually pretty sizable discount week in and week out. I don't know. I mean, do you think that you would go to anybody in that the Minnesota and Dallas range?
I think I like the Minnesota guys. I like Adam Thielen quite a bit, but I like Cooper at 6,900 a little bit too. So I don't know. I think there are some plays here. I don't know if I'd go to them, but they are in play, I guess, for GPPs.
Sure. Uh, the rest of these are kind of gross. I'm not a fan of the New England Carolina game. That should be a really slow paced, ugly game. You also know that the Panthers just can't seem to get anything right on offense or defense.
Yeah.
So I'm staying away from them now. Robbie Anderson, another horrible day, headlined by a crushing hit that's probably going to make the top 5 on the season. I know that you saw it yesterday. Dude got absolutely leveled. And what's funny about that is he actually was the reason the team won. He recovered the onside kick at the end of the game.
Yeah, I was so mad because, as you know, played Robbie Anderson for the second week, and just to see that crushing hit made me pretty upset.
Because it was like,
and then he got the freaking onside kick, and I was like,
yeah,
you couldn't have done that at all during the game. Like,
yeah.
you're getting paid $10 million to catch a ball, and you can't catch a ball. Like, I just blows my mind that Robbie Anderson is so bad at football.
Yeah, it came on at the exact moment, the exact right moment. The announcer, as Red Zone peers into that game, the announcer says, "Oh, he's got Robbie wide open," and then he just gets crushed, and loses the ball. I was like, of course, like the one time that he's actually open and they call his name, he just gets absolutely leveled. Anyway, DeAndre Hopkins, no injury tag against San Francisco, which is scary because I think he'll pop up on the injury report with that hamstring that's been lingering in that play against Green Bay. And then we have Keenan Allen, who I kind of figured that Mike Williams was going to get shut out a little bit against the Patriots. Came in, Allen got 11 targets and that receiving touchdown, which was an impressive grab. Again, it just depends on who gets shadowed by Slay, right? The Eagles have been very good about their wide receiver defense, and they are funneling a lot of their stuff again towards the running game as well as the tight end position. So we'll talk about Jared Cook as tight end comes along. As far as the guys that are getting into the cheaper range in the 6Ks, Brandon Cooks, if he's not moved by Sunday, is a very, very interesting spot against Miami. Should be a tough matchup, but again, thought last week was a tough matchup, and he still scored a touchdown. So we'll see how that one goes. I think that T. Higgins makes some sense here. Priced up after, I would say, a subpar game. Should have had a touchdown in that game yesterday against the Jets. Emmanuel Sanders back at the same price against Jacksonville. The one game that he doesn't, I know we don't have time for rants right now, but the one game where he scores 0 FanDuel points is the game that I play him. And he has 4 straight games of double-digit production.
I swear, you can look back at your like, I don't know if you've ever seen us play this, or you've ever heard us play this game in NBA, but it's like, what game did we roster this guy? Oh, it was the one game where he did basically nothing. I feel like that's like been the whole first half of your season, essentially.
Yep, people will gravitate to Cole Beasley, who had double-digit targets yesterday, was the best receiver for the Bills. Just keep an eye on Sanders this week for tournaments. I feel like he's going to be the lowest owned guy of the group. Even Gabe Davis scored a touchdown. It's like, I don't know, whatever. Devontae Parker against Houston's great. Jalen Waddle against Houston's great. You're going to probably see one of these guys heavily owned, along with Mike Gesicki, who I think is an awesome play. As far as the other guys, now we're getting into a range where you're talking about Jarvis Landry against Cincinnati, Tyler Boyd against Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy looked all right in his comeback spot, but I don't think I'm necessarily in on anything here. You're not playing Russell Gage. We were completely right on that. 0 FanDuel points yesterday for Russell Gage. Kind of surprised the field did not gravitate there. We'll talk about Kyle Pitts here in a second, but kind of just feels like this is a little bit of a iffy place down here, as it always is.
Yeah, as it always is once you get under 6K. I don't know. Yeah, there's not a lot that pops out to me.
I have one
I
one spot.
Oh, go for it, man. It's all yours. The floor is yours.
It's not Robbie Anderson, but and this is
Brandon Ayuk.
no, it's not. Oh,
Yeah, man.
no, it's not. By the way, Jacoby Myers scored a 2-point conversion yesterday, not a touchdown.
So half a touchdown. You can give him half a touchdown now.
Yeah, I think that Randall Cobb could make sense here,
I was
and
about to say the name. Yeah.
yeah, it's gross, certainly. But we saw what happened last week when they were depleted. Rodgers looks towards this guy when they get to the red zone. Also, the Packers will be without Robert Tonyan, and if Alan Lazard is unable to make this game, being unvaccinated and being a close contact and testing positive, it's one of those things where I think that Randall Cobb should step in and have a monster game alongside Devontae. So if those two things work out, then go for it. But if not, then it's kind of if you play at 5,600, I'd much rather roster him on DraftKings.
Call me crazy, and I might be completely wrong here, but I think Ayuk is about to have a breakout for the second half of the season. This is the first time we've seen him get over 5 targets since Green Bay. This is the first time that we've seen him look good on the field. I thought he looked really good yesterday. I watched the whole game. I think Ayuk is on the cusp of a breakout for the second half of the season. We know how good of a wide receiver he is. It's not a talent thing. It's been a coaching thing. But I think Shanahan's finally willing to turn the page and let this guy succeed. And I think 5,500 is the cheapest you're going to see him at for the rest of the NFL season. So heed my warning. Do whatever you want with it. But I'm going to be having a lot of personal Ayuk shares coming up over the next few weeks.
Yep, it's probably a decent DraftKings price, and I haven't looked yet, but I'm sure that's under 5K. So interesting for tournaments for sure, especially if Kyler does play this game to keep the game close and competitive. So I like it. He dropped a touchdown pass yesterday, hit him right in the shoulder pad. So I would expect them to keep going back to him as the season goes along, especially without Kittle. Let's talk about tight end here, and again, it's
real quick. Last wide receiver, and then I'll shut up. Rashad Bateman. Sammy Watkins is going to be still out this week. I like the Bateman play at 5,400.
That's a good price tag. I was interested in him at 5.3, so that was a couple of weeks ago. Now that they've had their bye week, I like it. Let's talk about tight end. We have Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, all the studs except for Kittle on the board. Now, I'm going to say, and this is probably not going to be contrarian, but what would you say about fading all the top 4 guys and just going with the real MVP of Mike Gesicki against Houston?
I did not expect that to come out of your mouth. Yeah, I think it's at least something you can consider with Mike Gesicki against Houston, especially if you are playing Tua. I think it's a great correlation piece. Might be better correlation piece than any of their other wide receivers because their wide receivers are there's so many guys who can get targets. So Mike Gesicki might be that guy. I don't really find myself that. I would love to hear your thoughts on Kelce really quickly, just because you know your Green Bay team better than I do. How will the linebackers fare against Travis Kelce?
I don't think that they won't be able to take him one-on-one. They'll have to always kind of use the safeties to help out. So I do expect him to be all right. The Packers struggle more against wide receivers than they do tight ends, and their tight end group has looked their linebacking group has looked much stronger than in recent history. So I think he'll be just fine. I expect this game to stay close. The price tag actually for him has gone down because we were talking about him being like a mid-8 tight end. So if you're doing a cross-positional analysis, I think you're probably taking Kelce over some guys like, I don't know, Diggs, for example, Marquis Brown maybe. Jefferson, CD Lamb. It's a very interesting conversation to have. I think Kelsey, if you're not playing Hill, you probably should find a way to get some of this Chiefs exposure because I do think that both teams could put up 30 plus points. So I don't mind it. I also made a joke about Gesicki. He's in play, but again, like you still have really good tight ends. Mark Andrews, I know that we'll have to keep an eye on that matchup. It's a little bit tougher than the wide receivers, but he should be all right. Darren Waller, we'll see what his ankle injury does. He's had some time to heal from that, see if he's good to go. He's in a smash spot against the Giants if he's 100%. And then Kyle Pitts, not the best matchup ever, but I mean, if Calvin Ridley's missing, they didn't really. I was shocked at the amount of targets that he got yesterday. 6 is just not enough for this spot against Carolina. So with Ridley being out, it didn't make sense to me, but his price tag actually went down, so maybe he's back in play here. Let's continue talking. I think Goddard's an interesting play. As far as that goes, keep an eye on Dawson Knox. He's priced way, way too high now, but he is always a touchdown or bust option for Josh Allen. And then it's kind of no man's land from there. Maybe, no, I can't do it. No. I mean, Jared Cook is the only option I really want to talk about down here. So 5,200 for Jared Cook against a Philly team that's really bad against defending the tight end. Do you stomach rostering Jared Cook, or do you just pay the extra 2K to get up to one of these top 5 guys?
Pay the extra 1K to get up to Dallas Goedert. I mean,
Yeah.
or 1,300 for Gesicki. I think the one guy you didn't talk about, which is really interesting, is Dan Arnold. Like, he got so many targets yesterday. Ended up getting
Yeah.
10 targets overall, 8 receptions, 68 yards. Well, I don't think the Dan Arnold play is a bad play, especially if Jacksonville is going to be forced to throw the ball.
Yeah, Dan Arnold has turned into this team's wide receiver too, to an extent, and you know that they're going to be coming from behind. So I don't mind it. We played him on DraftKings yesterday. It made a lot of sense. His price tag was like sub 3K. Maybe we'll see what it is tomorrow. He was only 4,900 on the main slate yesterday, so not much of a price bump. Do I think he's probably not a reliable 10 target option, but I do think he gets in the range of 5 to 7. So I don't mind it. It's just not the best. Again, probably more of a DraftKings play. Uh, Anything else at tight end? It's all gross down here. I'm not touching it.
Yeah, I'd rather just stay away.
All right, and then let's wrap this baby up. Let's talk about defense for the next minute or so. Wow, okay. Somebody broke the barrier finally. The 5K barrier ceases to exist now because we have the Buffalo Bills at 5,200 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wow. New England Patriots 4,800 against Carolina. The Saints against Matt Ryan. I was expecting to see the Atlanta defense up here a little bit, so I'm interested to see where they're priced at. Anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, Atlanta defense all the way down at 3,200, so definitely has some potential this week. I like the Patriots defense, especially if it's going to be against PJ Walker. And honestly, even if it isn't against PJ Walker, I feel like this Patriots team might be able to absolutely outclass the Carolina Panthers. I like the Bills as well. Makes sense at 5,200 if you are paying up for a defense.
Yeah.
49ers defense at 3,500 is a premier paydown spot with or without Kyler, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because even with Kyler, we were able to score 5 fantasy points. And I think without Kyler, we're able to, our defensive line is going to absolutely outclass that offensive line. So I really, pay down seems
Oh,
very much in play this week.
there's a lot of good pay down defenses this week. Obviously, we need news to shake out, but if you're spending 5 grand for the bill, first I don't know how you get the money on this slate with all the studs and the game environments on the board, but man, Atlanta Falcons against Trevor Simeon, and then you have the Denver Broncos against Cooper Rush possibly, which I like that spot a lot. We saw the amount of errant throws that he made last night, and then even though Minnesota lost the game, their defense still put up almost double digits. And then obviously San Francisco, if Kyler Murray sits or plays, I think is still in a good spot. And don't count out the LA Chargers here against Jalen Hurts. I think that the Lions defense play, I still stand behind that yesterday, but he just didn't turn the ball over, which was good for him. So pay down defense certainly, I think, stands out as one of the most I wouldn't say different ways you can go, but early on it just seems like this is a clear W down here.
Yeah, seems like this is definitely the place to go if you are looking to get in some cheap defenses.
All right, that is the Week 9 first look for FanDuel. We'll be putting this up later in the week for you guys on our YouTube page, RotoRadar Daily Fantasy Sports. Go check it out. We put all of our streams up there, or at least chunks of them. And yeah, we'll be back bright and early for you tomorrow morning. We can talk some DraftKings Week 9 first look as well. So we're going to get out of here for the day. We'll catch you guys, if you're NBA members, on the NBA podcast. And as always, good afternoon and good skill.